Hi, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of SuperNova Commencements. I am your host, Kashi, Sehgal. And by now, our graduates are probably graduates. Graduations are over, and you guys all did a great job. So congratulations. For everybody else joining us who are continuing on, we're so happy to have you. We've got an amazing show today, a very, very special guest. I know I say that a lot, but today I really mean it. Let's get into our Career Powered by Data segment, brought to us by our partners at Steppingblocks. So we talk about this every week, they have 100 million people, probably more now, worth of data. And they can analyze trends. They can help you understand skills and goals and what you need to do to get yourself to where you want to be. So check them out. Today, I think we're going to focus on construction. Now, it's not really related to our guest today, but maybe tangentially related to one of the companies that he works with. So let's talk about construction. Most common educational background is a degree in construction. There are a lot of people in this industry, 1.82 million people. It's a lot. The average age of the industry is 41. It is overwhelmingly male. It's 25% female, 2% veteran. Top skills are construction, project management, and construction management. And those skills that are going to maybe make you a little bit more is a LEED certification. So being able to do that, which is leadership in energy and environmental design, value engineering, and constructability. Go research those and figure out what all of that means. And then across the country, schools that most people in the industry come from, top schools, Texas A&M, Purdue, and Arizona State. So that is a high-level snapshot for you on the construction industry. Now, let's get right to our speaker today, because we want all the time we can possibly have with him. Hi, Jay Bailey.
How are you? Good. I guess good afternoon to everybody.
Good afternoon. We are so excited to have Jay with us today. Jay Bailey is president and CEO of the H.J. Russell, Innovation. So they just rebranded. So Jay, tell us what the new name is.
It's the H.J. Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs.
Got it. Okay. So instead of being RCIE, they are now RICE.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. So Jay, please start us off and tell us, where did you go to school? Where are you from? What did you major in?
I'm born and raised Atlanta, but born in Atlanta, raised in Decatur. For anybody that's listening is from the East Side. Went to the University of Georgia, majored in speech communications, but that major changed a couple of times while I was in Athens. We'll probably get into my story, but I was not the best student. Had such a good time in college. I did a victory lap and did 5 years instead of 4. But I started as a management information systems major and ended as a speech communications at UGA. But like anything else, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan. Life changes, things change. But no, we can get into all of that story, but go Dogs.
I then have to say go Jackets, but no biggie. Okay. So tell us, please, your high-level career path. How did you get from school to running the most innovative and supportive center for Black entrepreneurs in the country? How did that happen?
I think to talk about the way forward, I got to go back to my journey as an entrepreneur. I mean, the short form of it, guys, is that I started my first business when I was 12. I bought my first house at 19. Made my first million by the time I was 24, 25. But I didn't have good money role models. So I lost everything by the time I was 28. I went from living in a 10,000 square foot home in Alpharetta to literally living in a 9x9 storage unit on Mountain Industrial Boulevard in Tucker, Georgia. But it was there where I really realized by the world standards I had been successful. All the cars, the clothes, the houses, the trappings that we align with success. I was successful, but I had zero significance. I had done nothing to put a dent in this world. I had done nothing to really give back or change anyone's life. And once I started to chase significance, everything that I was doing was more about legacy and was more about purpose than just profit. And so, I aligned with a nonprofit organization that we helped grow to global scale in 10 countries. But soon about, I don't know, I stayed there about 8 years, I believe. And I had the epiphany about how I wanted to do more. I wanted to have more impact. I made my soon to be wife a promise that I would never get another job again. Because I wanted to go back to being an entrepreneur, controlling my own narrative, making my own way until this opportunity came along. And there are just very few times in life where you get to be a part of something will outlast you. And there are even rarer moments in life where you get to potentially be a part of something that could change the world. And with the Russell Center at 54,000 square feet, we're the largest center in the world doing this work. Supporting, enabling, building, growing, scaling Black entrepreneurs and focused on closing the wealth gap through entrepreneurship and business growth. But again, in honor of one of the greatest entrepreneurs this city has ever produced, H.J. Russell, we may get into that story, but how could I say no to continuing the legacy of someone that meant a lot to me? But even more importantly, meant everything to this city in the way that Black people in Atlanta are able to do business and matriculate today. So I had a one shot to actually make my dent in the world. And the Russell Center, I believe, will be a consequential thing that will impact generations even yet unborn.
I think you're right about that. And I know that Mr. Russell is very proud of the work you're doing and everyone's doing at the center. He was a very special person. So
indeed he was. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So before we dive into some of your specific roles, I want to ask you about the spirit with which you do things, because it's infectious and it comes through. It's one of excellence. It's filled with purpose. It makes you a doer and not just a talker. How did you develop this?
I think loss creates leaders. I think pain is one of those things that, measures the possibility of someone. Like those that are effectively able to manage pain, I think are the ones that are truly given vision. Part of my story, Kashi, the reason that I bought that house at 19 is because I lost my mother at the end of my sophomore year and I didn't have a home to go home to for Christmas. I went through a tremendous amount of losses in my life right after then, from my grandparents to my college sweetheart, to a cousin, to a very good friend. And a lot of times the money part of my life, though, those millions that I made, they were the crutch. Depression was not a conversation that would happen a lot in my community. It was taboo. But you probably had a young kid that had millions in the bank, but literally wanted to cry almost every day. But as long as the house was big and the car was nice, everybody assumed your life was perfect. And so it was a perfect hiding place for me. And the money became the crutch. And I think that when you talk about like this zeal for life that I have, or this reckless abandonment that I go with as far as change and energy and going hard for it, is because I understand lack. I understand loss. I'm a proponent that if you've never been on your back, I'm not really sure if you've ever really seen the sun. We take walking upright for granted, that we just walk straight ahead and think that our future is this way. But if you're on your back, the only choice you have is to look up. And so a lot of the small things don't bother me. Like, I've been hungry before, or have not had any money in my pocket. And, in the face of small challenges, they don't faze me. When we talk about like small things, it's like, there are worse things out there, and I've experienced a lot of them. So let's focus on the positive. Let's focus on the forward. Let's focus on the better. And I think knowing that place of loss and having a deep connectivity to discrepancies and disparities in our community, when I drive through our neighborhoods, Black neighborhoods in Atlanta, and I see what we don't have, what we lack, I know what access, opportunity, and exposure means. I know when I go from the top end of Northside Drive and drive to the bottom end, everything changes. It just keeps me fired up to want to see that actually balance out in some way, because I know that there's brilliance on the other side of the tracks. If we could only get them to believe that their ideas mattered and there was possibility in their brains and their brilliance is necessary, it just keeps me going. So it's a very personal thing for me. I've lived it, I've seen it, and I want to make sure others don't.
So that's a very powerful story and idea to start with, I think. How do students or young people channel whatever they're going through? Because we're all going through something.
Sure.
How do you channel that into something that's productive and positive? I mean, it can weigh you down. So how do you strike that balance?
I'm a big fan of finding your why. You can always you can have big failures, make huge mistakes. You can fall from grace, be dragged through the mud. But if you have a good handle on your why, you can always come back to it. You can always get up from it. You can always realign, readjust. And I think when I talked about that success versus significance, it is the journey that all of us have to take. What is that thing that we're purposed to do? I don't want to use the maybe oftentimes overused term of purpose, but that why may be on that road to what your true purpose and intention is on this planet. Why do I do this work? Why do I want this degree? Why do I have this aspiration? And it's always getting very clear on that, because I think if you are clear on why you are doing something, criticisms, doubters, haters, setbacks, obstacles start to feel less burdensome when you are very clear and cemented in why you're doing it. Because everybody's going to have something to say. And guess what? For all the positive that I do or try to do, I know everybody doesn't support me. I know everybody's not cheering for me. But I'm cemented in why I'm doing it, so it actually matters a whole lot less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everybody has detractors, but I feel like Jay Bailey has fewer of those. So I don't know anybody who doesn't cheer you on. Seriously.
I know a few. I'll introduce you. See what's really going on in their head.
All right. We'll educate them. Okay. So let's talk about Operation Hope. You referenced it earlier. This is a purpose-driven nonprofit. How did you get hired into Operation Hope? You ran the Southeast region. You were CEO. What training did you have to be successful in a role like this?
That's a funny story. I don't get to tell that one too often, Kashi. My training was here's what happened. I was literally homeless when I applied to Operation Hope. There was a ad on like monster.com. They were looking for a program manager to run a financial literacy program for kids. And I thought, I had made every money mistake known to man. And I felt like I was a pretty good salesperson, and I loved teaching and being in the classroom. And back to what I was saying, I was searching for purpose and significance. And I had really not even known much about the nonprofit world before then. I mean, what was a nonprofit? I'm a capitalist. What's a nonprofit? And but I read the job description. The program was banking on our future, and I saw purpose in it. And so I applied. And again, I thought I would be well suited. I did a little stint in banking, so I had a little bit of idea about finance and banking products, et cetera. And so I actually borrowed a friend's car to drive to the interview. I got hired. It is folklore, but it's a true story. John Hope Bryant, who's the founder of the organization, fired me my second week on the job, saying that, you know, there was no need to be in Atlanta. And who is this guy that you guys hired down there to represent us and represent me? I don't like it. Shut the office down immediately. But, you know, as they say, what's for you is for you. Because Atlanta was a new market, I was the first employee in the Southeast. My nearest supervisor was in Washington, D.C. It would just so happen, unfortunately, she fell down a flight of steps. She didn't die, but she wasn't working at the time. So that order to fire me and get me and close the office never went through. And I got to work. I've always been a hustler. You're never going to outwork me. And so there, you know, before you knew it, we were doing more programming than any other market in the country. 4 years later, Kashi, 5 years later, Atlanta became the global headquarters for the entire organization. And, you know, I went from a storage closet office when I first started with no laptop and no computer and a broken cell phone to the 40th floor of the 191 building, one of the most epic structures in our city, as the CEO of the Southeastern region. But then I also had another epiphany, just like I had in that storage unit. The whole world was cheering. I was an advisor to President Obama. We were getting all these awards and raising all this money. We had this big event. We had Bill Clinton there and world leaders. But I started to look at the skyline of Atlanta and I started to get sad that in the city that I was from at that time, the graduation rate for young Black men was 37%. I looked at our skyline from top to bottom. I didn't see any buildings in that skyline that we owned or controlled. I knew it's a bigger topic now, but even back then I was very aware at the wealth gap that existed in Atlanta and the haves and the have-nots. And I knew that we could do more. I knew that the work that we were doing was important, but was it transformative? Was it really moving the needle? And I knew that, you know, doing some things on my own was probably the best way forward. So I retired. I left, and it's and so it was, you know, I rewired, if you will. Then
I like that.
But that's when I made that promise to my wife about getting another job. That we started a private foundation, and then I went to start a logistics company. Got into a little bit of private equity on my own. And then this opportunity with the Russell Center came about, and that all got put on the shelf.
Mm-hmm. So you moved into a company that you created called Greenwood Archer. And this was a way to support Black founders, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, it was rooted in real estate, really. Like ownership was the calling. Like the narrative was ownership. My wife is from Oklahoma. She took me on a trip to Tulsa where I really dug deep into the Greenwood, Tulsa, Black Wall Street story. Two of the cross streets in Tulsa are Greenwood and Archer, and that's where Greenwood Archer came from. And it was about what do we own and what do we control? There's so much of our economy that's driven by Black economics. When you talk about how much of that dollar circulates back, in fact, the CEO of the Athlete's Foot was at the center visiting with us yesterday, and he told me a statistic that just blew my mind, that in America, there are only 3 brothers in America that own more than one shoe retail store, and there's only one Black woman that owns one. When Black people are undeniably the drivers of tennis shoe and sneaker culture globally. But there's absolutely no ownership in that. And we're talking about billions of dollars generated that never circulate back to the community. And so I've always been focused on, like, what do you own and what do you control? And how do you control that narrative? So Greenwood Archer was born out of that. And I think it was a perfect precursor to bring that same energy into the Russell Center as a mantra about controlling our narrative and what does the ownership dynamic do to change the landscape of wealth in America, especially when it relates to Black Americans.
Okay, I have so many questions. So many questions. First of all, there's a movement going on in Atlanta, right?
Oh, yeah.
Atlanta's becoming that capital of Black business and tech business, right? Entrepreneurs. Do you think it's becoming the new Wall Street, Black Wall Street, the new Greenwood?
I think it's even better. Greenwood was a couple of blocks. We're talking about a metro Atlanta area. And I think the kind of scale, of course, when you start to talk about Greenwood and Black Wall Street, they were under tremendous pressures, segregation, bigotry, racism, threat of death just for trying to exist because of the color of your skin. Atlanta is unique. I mean, I love what they're doing in Silicon Valley, love what they're doing in Cambridge with MIT and Harvard, Research Triangle, Duke, UNC, love what they're doing in Nashville and Austin. But none of them are as cool as Atlanta. I mean, none of them can go from Ambassador Young to Andre 3000. Happy birthday, Andre. It's a special city. We have more Black enrolled college students in Atlanta than any other place on the planet. We've got Morehouse, Clark, Spelman, Morris Brown, ITC, Morehouse School of Medicine. Georgia State has more Black enrolled college students than any other university or college in the country.
It's amazing.
We've got all of these Fortune 1000 companies right here headquartered in Atlanta. There are more corporate innovation centers than any other place in the country. We have all the pieces, and shame on us if we don't start coming together to put those puzzle pieces together to create something beautiful and that history will never forget. I don't think anybody is better positioned in the world to get this innovation, inclusion, diversity thing right. I think Atlanta is the space, and you see big corporations taking that very same bet. But it's up to us that have been here to build that kind of culture, to hold the line, to hold these companies accountable, and to actually see it benefit the communities that have been here to make Atlanta the special place that it's always been.
Mm-hmm. So moving into the Russell Center, you are supporting entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs. Can anyone be an entrepreneur? Is it learned? And what do you do to promote the entrepreneurs within your community?
That's the deal. Now, can anybody be an entrepreneur? Yep. Is everybody going to be a successful entrepreneur? No. And I think that one of the ways that we try to help is our big ideas model is a stage approach: inspire, develop, execute, accelerate, scale. What happens far too often, I come up with an idea. It's all in my head. I think I got all the right answers. I jump out there. I take a line of credit out against my house. I burn through my savings to go into this idea. It does not work. 3 years later, I'm much poorer than I was. I've over leveraged. My house is upside down, and I still don't have a business that's earning any revenue. Or I take the other approach where I have a great idea. I may go out and raise capital, venture capital, but I've ignored the real key to business. It's customers. So yeah, maybe I've raised $2 million, but nobody's buying my thing. And so, the Russell Center, I hope, and we're a startup as well, so we are testing this model. I'm not an expert at it yet. But in the Inspire stage, it is really looking at like college students that are out there, high school students, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, master's program. That in your freshman year, you're taking English 101, you're testing the water, seeing how it works. And I can guarantee you, if you're at Tech and you can't pass English 101, you're not going to become a sophomore. So literally, how do you test this curiosity? How do you build it into a concept? In the develop phase, how do you take that concept and put a company around it? Execute, where we partner with Georgia Tech, is really all about use case analysis, customer discovery, really executing the business, getting out of the theory and out of the models and out of the floor plans and looking at actually doing the thing. Mm-hmm. And accelerate once you've identified that there is a customer, there is a marketplace. How can you reach more of them to look at growth and scale? And in the scale space is now companies that are ready to go to the next level. How can we get them from $1 million in revenue to 10 million, 10 million to 100 million? Scale being what will be the collective impact of 10 companies in Atlanta with the capacity to hire over 1,000 people. The catalytic kind of multiplier effect of that could change everything. We control the narrative. Now we're not waiting on Microsoft to give us some jobs. Now we're not waiting on, the Home Depot to create jobs. No, we're our own economic mobility engine. We're creating the technology, the innovation, the corporations, the companies that hire those that are within the community. We don't have to ask for someone to please consider our community when they move to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talked about impact. How do you really create impact? And how do you this is something that you've said, how do you live a life of significance?
It's different from other people. I think one of the greatest definitions of it, though, I heard from Dr. Gregory Ellis. He's with the Emory Divinity School. He said he was talking to his aunt. He was a kid, and she was rocking on the rocking chair in the South, snapping some snap beans. He said, "Auntie, how do you change the world?" And she said, "Baby, I don't know how you change the world, but I do know how it can affect the 3 feet around you." I think significance, we think of these broad strokes of sweeping change that affect thousands of people. But I think that in my mind, significance is incremental. It could just be that I guarantee that my daughter will cross that stage and graduate, or that she'll be able to read by the time she gets to 3rd grade. Or I may spend some time at the local elementary, middle, or high school that's right near my house that I pass by every day. And there's one student in that school that could benefit from my mentorship. It could come in the form of hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs that have created businesses, that have created jobs and create more revenue and create more wealth. But I think that far too often we put significance in the category of by magnitude. But I can guarantee you, Mr. Russell, who, we haven't gotten into his history at all, but one of the most prolific entrepreneurs the city has ever produced, the most catalytic, significant thing was his father showing him a trade that he was able to take on himself and then build legacy. Had his father not done that one incremental thing to show him a trade and make young HJ believe that he could do it, maybe we're not even here having that conversation. So I think significance comes in many forms, and no two people are going to have the same life of significance. But I also never want to underestimate the power of the individual effort, one-to-one, the incremental change that actually collectively really was what moves the planet forward.
Absolutely, because there are ripples.
Absolutely.
And so you touch one person, they touch one person, and that's a never-ending chain.
Mm-hmm.
You've mentioned Herman Russell several times. Could you tell us just briefly, for people who don't know, who he was, what he meant to Atlanta?
Certainly. Again, it's almost an unbelievable legacy. 84 years of life lived, but you're talking about a guy that stood about 5'10" with a severe speech impediment. And Kashi, I know you know this story well. But this is the guy that helped underwrite the civil rights movement, integrated the Chamber of Commerce at the city level and the state level, built half of the skyline in Atlanta, had a pool inside his house in the 40s when a young Dr. King used to get away from the world and go over there to swim and talk about how he wanted to change the world. This is the brother when 100 students got locked up during the student movement in Atlanta. They made one phone call and one man bailed them all out. And when we talk about the Russell Center, to give it some context, you got to think of a Black man 74 years ago in the Jim Crow segregated racist South, where they were still lynching Black people back then, having the audacity to build a headquarter building that's a full city block wide and 50,000 square feet with his name on it. He built that headquarter building intentionally there, directly across the street from Morehouse, Clark, Spelman, because back then I couldn't have gone to the University of Georgia by law. I couldn't have gone to Georgia Tech. And he knew that those students, as they came from all over the world to matriculate at those schools, needed to see the physical manifestation of what was possible for students that looked like them. And so he intentionally put his building at 504 Fair Street right on that corner so they could see exactly that. Phenomenal legacy. Even to this day, H.J. Russell and Company is the largest Black-owned construction firm in the country. Concessions International is one of the larger airport concessionaires and hospitality companies in the country, certainly the largest Black-owned. And that legacy continues. When you talk about ripples, Kashi, one of my personal mantras is plant seeds that will grow trees whose shade you may never sit under. And when I think about Mr. Russell's legacy, he was planting seeds the whole time. and the fruits that'll be birthed or bore from those seeds that he planted, he'll never see, he'll never taste that shade, he'll never sit under. But I guarantee that for generations yet unborn, they will feel the impact and owe a debt to the legacy of Herman Russell.
That's so well put. I will say, to take that tree analogy a step further, you do find impact from that tree indirectly, because it's cleaning the air around you, and it's providing the world with the resources we need to survive.
Amen.
So it's all interdependent.
Amen.
Okay. We have so many student questions coming in, so I think we should get to them. But I would love for you to tell the story about you as a young man, going to the barber shop, having the conversation that you did. Could you please tell that story? I just think
Where'd you hear that story? Did I tell you that when we met?
Yeah.
Oh, I was a horrible student, guys. So anybody out there listening is a high school kid or whatever else, I sucked at school. I was branded gifted in kindergarten. I was really smart, but I was a latchkey kid. So when I came home, no parents were there. So, Jay, did you do your homework? Yes. Never did. But I was always enterprising. I used to sell popsicles that I make in the ice tray. I was so cold with it, guys. I used to charge people 50 cents to fight in my backyard, so they wouldn't get caught in the front yard. And one day I was riding my bike to the barber shop, and I don't know what the coolest car is now. It may be a Hellcat, like a Dodge Challenger or something like that. But back then, for me, you could have put a Bentley next to a Ferrari, and I'd have taken a Mustang GT 5.0 every day of the week. Riding my bike to the barber shop, and I see it. There's a black on black convertible Mustang GTs parked illegally right in front of the barber shop, and I lose my mind. Anybody from the east side, I'm on Candler Road, so there's a place where you don't leave anything unlocked. I drop my bike. I'm 11 years old. I run into the barber shop like, whose car is that? And my barber kind of gives me the nod, that universal symbol of that's me. Because of where I was from, and because I didn't understand money and entrepreneurship, didn't even know the word, I thought he was a drug dealer. Who else could afford that kind of car in my neighborhood? So when I got in his chair, I jumped in. I was like, John, I didn't know you were a dope boy. And he cursed at me, screamed at me, told me to turn around and count how many chairs I saw in the shop. I said 10. He said, well, each one of these barbers pays me $50 a week to cut hair in my shop. You got to remember, this is early 80s pricing. Do the math, Jay. You're smart. So I started doing the math. He said, hold on, before you finish, boy, I got 2 more shops just like this. Finish the math. So little Jay Bailey was like 0, 0, 0, comma, 0. And he said it. He whispered in my ear, boy, I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business. And what you need to do is go find you something you love and make money doing it. Wow. I had never heard the word entrepreneur, and nobody had ever talked to me about ownership. So my bike ride home fundamentally changed my life, Kashi. I was curious, like, who owns the tire shop? Who owns McDonald's? Who owns the public library? Who owns that piece of land right there? Mom, Dad, do we own our house? We do. Self-esteem, self-confidence goes up. Now, if you cross through my yard, I want to fight you because we own it. And I had a certain pride in that. And so, that journey actually got me on the trail to start my first business. When I said I started my first business at 12, I love car stereo equipment. My role models were not Ambassador Andrew Young and Maynard Jackson, Herman Russell. My role models were based on somebody's ability to shake the walls in my house when they drove by. I love big speakers and big cars. And so I taught myself how to install car stereo equipment. I loved it. And my first business became the House of Boom, following the advice of my barber. But that speaks to what we were saying earlier, Kashi. Like, I guarantee if I could find her today and he's an old man, and if he even remembered remotely whispering into this kid's ear in his chair, the impact on my life and my trajectory going forward, even to this day, of him in that day in that barber chair, that one whisper, the ripples of that.
The ripples, absolutely.
And so it speaks to that point about what significance looks like. He was just present and showed up and gave his whole self and gave me an authentic answer. And that sharing changed my life forever. And so yeah, I was the kid that now that I had a business, you know, it would be called STEM education now. Like I had to understand ohms and wattage and how to measure a cubic foot of airspace. And so now my aspiration to be successful in business meant my need for education. School became relevant. I took off. AP physics, AP calculus, those things started to make sense because I matched aspiration and education. Those AP courses raised my GPA up just enough to qualify for the second round of Hope scholarships they offered in the state of Georgia. And that's how I got to the University of Georgia, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it. That business, that line of entrepreneurship is what actually propelled my ability to get an education and really shaped a lot of the way that I think about life today. And it came from that one moment. College was not a huge priority. I knew I'd eventually go, but would that be DeKalb Community College or Georgia State or UGA? Who knew? But I wasn't all that focused on it. But again, I think education means very little without aspiration. What is your big why? What is the thing that makes your heart sing? What is that thing that turns you on? And let's start looking at education that supports and fuels that fire. Go take the classes, go make you dangerous in this thing that you love. And that's what worked for me. That's why physics was a good thing for me, because now I could understand how to build one hell of a speaker box.
Yeah. Take what you're interested in and apply it to what you're learning. It sounds
Makes
like
learning a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, anytime you make it relevant to your life, it makes more sense.
Absolutely.
That's why I applied, like going out, taking what you're learning in school and going out and using it somewhere in your community. It makes more sense when let's say you're a nutrition student and you go out and you help put together a diet plan for someone who has medical issues. And then you understand what it means to cook without salt, but still find flavor. And that all comes together in such a simple way, but you've made such an impact.
Absolutely.
I'm pulling that from a student project from the foundation that my mom and I have, but it's such a simple example and I love it so much. We've many, many more, but it sounds like the barber, the shop owner, served that same role for you that Herman Russell's dad did for him. And so just caring for 5 minutes and sharing a story and being present created such a ripple.
Amen.
So
you never know. You never know the impact you may have.
So always keep that with you as you're going through your day, be present and take the moment to care about someone else. Okay. So we have let's start with a deep one. Kind of deep. Kayla wants to know, what is your definition of success?
Ooh. For me, success isn't present. It's Jay-Z has a line about you're not rich unless the people around you are. Like, it is, what can you do? Because I think far too many people see success as this kind of up and down singular thing. Mine is certainly more holistic. If I'm a millionaire and nobody in my circle is a millionaire but me, then I failed. I had a friend of mine, Greg Clay. He said something to me that became kind of my narrative for success. Even before we were thinking about children or family, he was like, Jay, I want you to be a really dope great-great-granddad. I was like, what does that mean? He said, everybody can have a kid, and most people are pretty successful at being a grandparent. But how many people have lived a life where their great-great-grandchildren, they have a certain level of significance in their life or have impact in their life? And I think for me, whoever asked the question about success, mine is generational. Like, what can I do today that will impact 7 generations yet unborn in a positive way? That's what success looks like for me. And I think success for me has always been defined around like, what can I do for others? I figure I believe in myself enough to be individually successful. But to then find pathways for others to find their path, that's what I really think that you dig into what success means for me.
It's great. Eric wants to know, when did you feel like you had really made it?
That's the relentless pursuit of perfection, brother. Like, the gaps are so wide, Eric, that I don't feel like it now. And I don't know if I'll ever get to that point. Like, it's funny, Mr. Russell, I heard a story about Mr. Russell, and even though he was worth $100 some odd million, he still drove around an old Ford Explorer. I don't get, one of the things that I always say, guys, and don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. I don't know if I'll ever feel like I truly made it. I'm appreciative. And I am blessed by all measures. I have a blessed existence. But I think that there's so many gaps that still exist. It keeps me working hard every day. I never get tired, or I'll never get lazy around trying to work for more for myself, my family, my friends, my community, because the gaps are so wide and there's so much more work to do. So I don't think I'll ever be able to just rest and say, yeah, I'm good. I got enough. I'm successful. I'm at the top of my game, because there's so much higher to go.
Cassandra would like to know, what is one thing that every entrepreneur needs to know?
You can't do it by yourself. I think entrepreneurs oftentimes, because the ideas happen in your head alone, that it has to be you. You're an island. You're a self-made man or woman. And I think that's the biggest myth of all. You need support. You need community. You need culture. You need people around you that are telling you and cheering you on and saying, hey, this is going to work, or when it gets tough, because it will get tough, to have that safety net and that support network. You don't know it all. So find your tribe, get some support. Do not try to do it on your own. I think community is actually more valuable than capital when you're starting a business. And, if I say something from the mountaintop, it is literally, there's no such thing as a self-made man. Go find a tribe, go find like-minded individuals, go ask the questions, be vulnerable, be very clear and transparent about what you don't know, so you can get real good counsel, and go find the best counsel that you can find. But again, it all boils down to stop trying to do it by yourself.
Yep, totally agree. Mike wants to know, this is specifically about RCI or RICE. I'll get that right eventually.
I still mess it up too.
I just started my own business. What are the requirements for being at the Russell Center?
For right now, it's living in the city of Atlanta. I think it may be the state of Georgia. But at that point, based on our sorting mechanism for big ideas, inspire, develop, execute, accelerate, scale, we are industry agnostic. So if you have an idea and you're just on the beginning stages, there is a place for you in the inspire stage. We just had and brought on another 50 some odd entrepreneurs. I believe the team is going to open up applications and information sessions next quarter. But every entrepreneur has to go through an info session. If you attend that info session, you'll be able to get an application. That application is submitted. Our partners, our team review those applications, and they sort people based on that application, and we get you on your way. We're not a program that kind of looks at you spend 6 weeks with us and you're done, because I don't think businesses are built that way. We're built on a continuum of engagement for the life cycle of the business, and we create this community where you'll always be surrounded by support. And so we're hopeful about the results of this first go round, but we're going to be here. So go to russellcenter.org and join our mailing list and see how you can get engaged.
Is it just tech companies?
No, we look at every company. So we're industry agnostic, and we're actually not a tech incubator or accelerator. I'm a firm believer that Main Street businesses are what actually drive our economy. Our economy is tech enabled, but it's not tech based. And so there are very little places where, yes, I want to be able to help that barbershop that's doing 400,000 in revenue, 150,000 in revenue. How can they do better? How can they hire more people? How can they stabilize their current business model and make it repeatable? So no. And then when people get in very specialized fields, we have the connectivity to all the big corporations and the experts. So if you're a fintech company, yeah, by the time you come through our rubric and get to accelerate, I'm connecting you to Fiserv and FIS and companies that do fintech at the highest level, rather than saying that we're the expert in all things.
Yep. The ultimate connectors. Curtis wants to know, does anything in life really shock you anymore?
Whew. Hell, if somebody wants to lie and say that 2020 didn't have some shocking twists and turns, they're just not being honest. 2020 was a whole mess of, I don't believe that. So yeah, I was shocked a lot in 2020, and it wasn't just about the pandemic. There were just so many things. So, I am still shocked though by the level of disparity that's just obvious, the inequality that's just obvious, and that I'm still shocked that it took some events in Minnesota for the world to go, wait a minute, everybody's not treated fairly in America. That shocked me, and I'm still shocked by people not understanding that there are levels and there are wide gaps, and for some they just don't even get it, don't see it. Their position of privilege doesn't allow them to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a whole nother show.
No doubt.
Jared wants to know, actually, let's go with this one. Tracy wants to know, are you saying I should start my own company instead of working at a company?
I can't say that for you, Tracy, because I don't know you. But I am saying I am a firm believer of someone taking the risk, taking the leap, taking a calculated risk and pursuing their dreams. If you have the determination, the skill, the big idea, the big problem that you want to solve, and we can prove that there's a marketplace out there that you created value and can communicate that value, why not take the leap? One of my sayings or slogans, Kashi, I know it's a children's show and a family show, but it's WTFN. It's why the F not? Every company that you know, every big company that you know, everybody listening, hear this. Every big company that you know, big corporation, was once a medium-sized company, was once a small company, and was then an idea from somebody that everybody thought was crazy. So I don't care if it's Microsoft, the Home Depot, Amazon, all of them at some point were a small individual saying, you know what? I bet I could do that. And why the F not? Mm-hmm. So, Tracy, depending on what your business is, the Russell Center is here to help people flush out those ideas and seeing if there's a there for real and for real. But I'll never be a person that tells a future entrepreneur, no, you should go get a job. But in some cases, of course, there's honor in having a job, that you may have your 9 to 5 that funds your 5 to 9. Different scenarios for different people. Do what works best for you and your family and your surroundings. But who knows? People talk about, well, what if you fail? Well, what if you fly? There may be somebody in the future that pays for their kid to go to college because the idea that you had became real, and the job that they have, the benefits that they have, the money they've been able to earn and save allows them to buy a house, a car, send their kid to college just because you had the courage to take your idea and bring it to the marketplace.
Yep. Lawrence wants to know, did you ever buy your Mustang?
I bought several Mustangs. The crazy part is by the time I had money, they changed the body style. So it wasn't the big boxy 5.0 that I wanted. But you're damn right. Even today, when I rent a car, almost every time I get a chance, I'm going to rent a convertible Mustang. Now, I've got different tastes, yes, but it will always have a special place in my heart for sure.
That's funny. Kelly wants to know when, I would also like to know this. When does your book come out?
That's the thing y'all can help me with. I'd rather just live the life and let somebody else write the book. Let me live a life that's worthy of somebody writing about it and let somebody else do it. I'm just not wired. That's why I never call myself like a public speaker or anything like that, because I think we all just move through life. And I think that, yes, there may be a book in me, but I've just not grown. And maybe it's a blind spot or an insecurity that I carry, that for me to like write a book, put my picture on it and sell it to you, versus Kashi saying, let's just have a conversation. This is free, and I would give it freely all the time. Mr. Russell, before he died, I had the chance to be over at his house, and he had written his book, Building Atlanta. And he said something that just stuck with me. He's like, I didn't do this to sell this book. I don't care if a single person purchases my book. But as long as my granddaughter can pull this book off the shelf and hear my story in my own words, that's enough for me. And, you know, it was moving to me because I see so many that are so self-involved that they write books so for your reaction to them. And it's not really about moving people forward. And so I got some growing to do there. I don't know. You know, I'll continue to live life and see where it is. But I just think that if I do it right, maybe there's somebody that would write a book about it. Who knows? But I don't know, guys. Maybe that's for the next call, Kashi, on have I grown up a little bit to think that that may be something I need to do.
I think that's a challenge to our students. Maybe y'all need to, all you writers out there, maybe you need to message Jay and see if you can do a project on him.
Jay Bailey, Bailey. Let's connect.
Let's do it. Guys, take them up on that. All right, let's do one last question. This is what I was going to ask before. Where did it go? Jared. Okay, Jared liked to know, when do you have time for you?
Oh, I make time for me. I am not one of those people that believes you sleep when you die, or there's never you have to take care of you. You've got to have mental space. I have seen far too many people that have stroked out, had heart attacks, hypertension, fall dead because they believed in running nonstop without ever taking time. Like, you can't be your best version of yourself if you don't take some time away to think, to rest, to recharge. I mean, like, where do the best ideas come from? In deep moments of thought and meditation. My wife and I, we bought an estate up on the lake. You know, we've got a lot of acreage up there where I can get away from the world and leave this whole city behind and nothing else matters. And I try to get up there as often as I can because you have to disconnect. In today's world, we're always on. We're always connected. And we get all kind of information from all kinds of places, different from 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Like, literally, I know what 1,000 of my friends are doing today, and I got to process all that. And I got to go from somebody's mother died, to somebody bought a new puppy, to somebody had a kid, to somebody jumped off a cliff, to somebody with a funny video. And that mental dexterity will take a toll unless you can exercise and exit ramp and really take time for yourself. I know mine is boating, and I know mine is the outdoors. So I have invested in myself, and I think the returns are better than anything that I could get in the stock market by investing in those things that give me peace. Invest in your peace. The returns are phenomenal, guaranteed.
Well, I cannot think of a better way to end today than with that piece of advice. Invest in your peace. That is so powerful. Jay, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you, Kashi.
Students, you know that we are at supernovacommence.com. All of the upcoming shows, all of our past shows are listed there. Next week, we have Stephanie Stuckey, who is CEO. Yeah, who's CEO of Stuckey's Corporation. She's done all kinds of cool things. She used to be the past chief resilience officer at the city of Atlanta. She worked at Southface. She's done a lot of cool stuff. So we're going to talk to her about reviving her family business. And please make sure you sign up for the mailing list. All our cool things come to you through the mailing list. You know that already. Jay, do you have any final thoughts for our students?
One, ask Stephanie how she's going to solidify our partnership together in the pecan industry. So we've already talked about it, and Stephanie's a friend. She's going to be amazing. So tune in next week. But, you know, Ambassador Andrew Young gave me a piece of advice that really stuck several years ago. And he said, son, you better make your friends before you need them. And I took that to heart. Like, for all of you that are on the call that are in high school or in college, you know, invest in those people around you that you know are not going to stand still. Like, you probably have in your relationship base somebody that's going to be a doctor, a congressman, a senator, maybe mayor, governor. While you're in developmental stages, understand relationships mean everything in business, in work. Every aspect of your life is driven by the relationships that you have. So make deep friendships now. because it's a hell of a lot easier to go to a friend for something that you need than a stranger. And I can't tell you how many times that's manifested in my life. Kashi, somebody that I met 10 years ago, is now in a place of influence. And now when I approach them about an opportunity, it's not a stranger, that's a deep friendship, and we're deeply connected, and that's how it moves forward. Last thing, the great CT Vivian gave me another piece of advice. God rest his soul, but another civil rights icon. He said, all the power is in the doing. It's in the action that we actually see the world change. And you guys all out there who have all of these great ideas or having all of these thoughts, I think it was Tracy talking about starting her business. The power's in the doing. Take the first step, whatever that may be. So Kashi, that's it.
Love that. All right. Well, I don't have much more to add to that, folks. Jay is amazing. I told you you would love today's show, and this is all great advice. Please take it, re-listen to this show, make notes, and then go out and do. Okay.
Got it.
Have a great week. And remember, it's a blessing to be a blessing. And we will see you next week. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Take care.